Now, something that Simon Harris has said on a few occasions. Simon Harris is an Englishman based in Catalonia, has been there for a few decades. And he's made this point that, you know, Catalonia itself is very diverse. It's becoming increasingly diverse, almost as a way of separating themselves from the rest of Spain. The governments there over the last few decades have gone on a kind of deliberate policy of making Catalonia as un-Spanish as possible. So they've filled Catalonia with Muslims from everywhere, with Africans, with Asians, South Americans, etc., just to make it very, very un-Spanish. So as you all know, like this is highly destructive. This is probably the worst thing you could do to a country, is to deliberately make it as diverse as possible, and with the people who are the most different from your own ethnic group. Like this is an absolute disaster. But this is the suicidal policy that Catalonia, the trajectory it's been on in recent times, thanks to its political leaders and its media and so on. They hate Spain so much. They hate the Spanish establishment so much that they will even destroy themselves to show that they're not Spanish, that they're actually Catalan. So, you know, I look at this situation and I take some of the lessons that Simon Harris has been making here. And this is Simon Harris now, the Englishman, of course. He's not the Irish minister, obviously. But anyway, but Simon has some really good insights in regard to this. And he basically says that, you know, the Catalans are not so different from the rest of the Spanish, you know, and whatever about having other Spanish in Catalonia, these people who are very, very close to them ethnically and culturally and so on, filling the place full of people who are totally different, like completely different culturally, ethnically. This is an absolute disaster. And a key point he makes is that, you know, as Catalonia becomes ever more diverse, and, you know, obviously the Muslims and a lot of the Africans and Asians are going to have bigger families, often much bigger families than the native Catalonians, and also than any of the Spanish that are there, native Spanish. So what's going to happen is Catalonia is going to become ever more diverse. Now, I'm not sure what the actual numbers are at the moment. It could be 25-30% non-ethnically Catalan or Spanish in Catalonia, but it's increasing each year, the amount of non-natives. And, you know, you can see a situation down the line where it's going to be a majority non-ethnically European, at least, and certainly non-ethnically Catalan or Spanish, probably within 2 or 3 decades. And he was kind of foreseeing that situation and realizing and, you know, telling the viewers, these people are not going to care about Catalonia. They're not going to care about Catalan culture. They're not going to care about Catalan heritage. They're not going to care about Catalan art and architecture and the Catalan landscape and the Catalan language and the Catalan people, etc. And he was saying that basically we cannot trust these people to look out for Catalonia. They won't care. They have no connection to it. They have no ethnic or cultural connection to Catalonia. So why would they care? It's only the likes of us. It is only, you know, ethnic Western Europeans predominantly are pretty much the only people in the entire world to actually really care about other cultures, about other ethnicities. We are the only ones that are taught that outgroup preference, you know, and often we're taught to neglect our own in-group as well as part of that, you know. But anyway, when I heard this really resonated with me, because I began to think in terms of Ireland, you know, and I began to think in terms of the way we're changing, you know. And obviously, you know, back 20 years ago, initially we had the Africans coming in, the anchor babies, and then from 2004 onwards, we had the Eastern Europeans coming in big numbers, and then in more recent times we've had a lot of Chinese coming in, and a lot of Indians coming in, especially into corporations and that. And, you know, you have to think as well, it's a similar situation. Like these people, and, you know, most of them are nice people. If you speak to them on an individual basis, they're generally nice people. And a lot of them are hardworking, a lot of them paying their taxes and so on. But they have no tie to Ireland. They have no ethnic tie to us. Okay, they have no real connection to Ireland. So, therefore, they don't care about Ireland. They don't care what becomes of Ireland. They don't, you know, they have no love for Ireland, really, when it boils down to it, you know. And as a result, as Ireland becomes more and more diverse, And as the share of Irish people in the overall population becomes less and less, the newer people coming into Ireland are going to have less and less of a tie to Ireland, less and less of a, appreciation or love for the country, a love for its culture, its heritage, its traditions, its language, etc. And because they don't care about it, because they have no tie to it, they're not going to preserve it, And the same thing with our history. It's not their history. It wasn't their ancestors that lived that history. It wasn't their ancestors that fought for Ireland, that died for Ireland, that, struggled for our independence, for our freedom. They have no tie to that, none whatsoever. So even though they might pay lip service to it and they might say, oh yeah, it's our history and it's our people. But of course, we all know that's nonsense. Like it has no connection to them. So they can't really relate to it, not on any deep level anyway. Therefore, they're not going to preserve it, and therefore they will not protest when that history is being rewritten, and that history will be rewritten. Irish history will be revised and rewritten to suit the Globo Homo agenda, to suit the multicultural narrative. Be in no doubt this will happen. It will happen slowly. It will happen, it will take time, but this will begin to happen. In the same way they've done it with World War II, they've done it with a lot of established, a lot of the official version of history, if you like, has been doctored. A lot of what we know of as the official version of history, in particular the First and Second World War, has been manipulated, to suit certain agendas. And you can see now in recent times as well, they're doing it with the Romans, and they're doing it with the Celts, and they're doing it with a lot of these, tribes, these great tribes of Europe, and they're making these tribes multicultural. They're making these tribes Muslim and African, which is absolute nonsense, but this is what they're doing, and this will go on in Ireland too. That's the point I'm coming to as well. And because Ireland will be more and more diverse all the time, the newer people who have come to Ireland, the non-ethnic Irish who are now living in Ireland, who are now, 20% and will be 25% and 30% and so on, as the years go on, if we don't do anything to stop it, those people will not care about Ireland, and they will do nothing to save us, nothing to help us, nothing to preserve Ireland. We somehow need to get that idea through to ordinary people. Now, we understand that, we know that. Ordinary people do not know that, and they are still wedded to this outgroup preference idea, okay? Just prioritize the outgroup and neglect the in-group. That kind of ethno-masochist idea, that is being fed down on a daily basis through our media, via our politicians, via our economists, via the establishment. It's everywhere. So we have to push back against that, all right? And I've just been thinking, just to finish up this video, now I know some of the Irish YouTubers are already doing this. I think Critique does it on a fairly regular basis, and some of the other YouTubers as well. But basically, we need people, and maybe I'll do this as well, but we need people who are on a regular basis, going through the main articles coming from the Irish media, particularly from, the most poisonous publications like the Irish Times. The Examiner in recent times has really ramped up the anti-Irish kind of Globo Homo narrative, RTE as well. And, not just the mainstream, but also you got a lot of regional media as well, a lot of regional radio stations. And these guys are also pushing the same narrative in recent times, okay? Trying to undermine Irish people, trying to get us to think only in terms of what's good for the outgroup, and neglect and forget what could be good for Irish people, Neglect the in-group, prioritise the outgroup. That is how we are being taught to think, and it's absolutely poisonous. So have a think about that. Maybe some of you listening could do that. You could start up a YouTube channel, and you don't even need to show your face. You can literally just be going through a few different articles from mainstream media, maybe from regional media, maybe even some clips from RTE, and highlight where there is blatant propaganda, blatant spin, blatant anti-Irish messaging coming down through there, blatant Globo Homo propaganda, whatever it is, whatever you can see there that is poisonous, that is wrong, that is absolutely, undermining Irish people. Have a think about it. See if you can do something in that line. I might do something similar myself, but these are the things we're going to need to do in order to protect Ireland going into the future.